Well, speaking of losing faith, if you're a Clemson fan, are you losing faith in Dabo now? They lose 24 to 17 to NC State. Is it time for Clemson to move on from Dabo? Because Clemson has a plethora of talent on their roster still. There's still 5 stars, there's still 4 stars on that roster. There's not really the excuse here. They have the talent discrepancy in their favor, yet they're finding ways to consistently lose. And Dabo, look, he has been the absolute purveyor of I will not adapt. I don't like what the times have become. I'm very against this. I'm going to do things how they were done in the 1960s, and we're going to keep doing it that way because I've won in the past, and therefore it's going to work in the future. And it's kind of catching up with Dabo here. His failure to adapt, his refusal to, I guess, get over himself a little bit. I think Dabo has a little bit of an ego, a little bit of an inflated self-image. That's how I see it from an outsider's perspective. And I think that's really getting in the way of Clemson's success. But the thing is, he's so decorated with the history of Clemson. How long of a leash do you give him if you're the Clemson Tigers brass? Because if this continues, you're going to go from being that 2015 to 2020 perennial, contender, and you're going to drop into one of those mid teams in the ACC, getting trounced by FSU, Miami, UNC every year.
Zan, let me answer your question with a question of my own, a trivia question of sorts. Who caught the game-winning touchdown against them when they played Florida State? Do y'all recall? Well, it was Keon Coleman. And did he begin his career at Florida State? I'm pretty sure he did not. I'm pretty sure he was an acquisition through the transfer portal. So all that to say, if I'm the brass, I'd tell Dabo, listen, if Shane Beamer's up here doing it, you should be too. Because Clemson, it's a beautiful place to be in South Carolina. You've established a history there in the last 10 years. Because of you're willing to die on this hill of your ego, and that's how you used to do things, that is such a dumb reason to let teams just surpass you, get a free pass, not even be considered by these marquee guys that go in the transfer portal. The transfer portal is not evil. It is not inherently evil or sinful or anything of that nature. It is an avenue for guys who it didn't work out at their first school to go and do something different. You see it with Mertz at Florida, Joe at Burrow at LSU, Travis at FSU. You got 2 billion examples you could use. And if I'm brass, I'll tell them, listen, you either adapt to this or we'll just go and see if we can throw a bag at Dan Lanning or someone who's gladly going to do it. Because this is college football now, dude, and either retire or go to the NFL. Because this is the sport, and what you need to do is bring in transfers if you want to win. End of story.
Look, there are great coaches available right now in this particular cycle that I think can be absolute home run hires for big programs and can keep them relevant for a very long time. And you don't see coaches like this necessarily come available every cycle that I feel like that have just this kind of a proven pedigree. Mike Elko, Lance Leipold. If Clemson was able to get like a Mike Elko, imagine what he's done over there at Duke with all those 3 stars. You give him a bunch of 4s and 5s, that defense is going to be elite, man. And he's going to find himself a bunch of Riley Leonards that are better than Riley Leonard. And I'm telling you, if Mike Elko went to Clemson, that'd be a problem. Clemson would be back on the map.
I think Dabo Swinney is a victim of his own success here.
Yes.
And what I mean by that, it's kind of like a Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State situation. The program was not good when he inherited it. He brought it up and elevated it to the standard at which it's at. But now it's starting to slip a little bit. And now he's being held to the same standard that he helped build, that he helped raise, which I kind of get it. Listen, I kind of get it, especially when you have these long-term tenured coaches. It's kind of like, well, why are you holding that against me when I'm the one that rose the bar to that level in the first place? I get it from that point of view. Listen, I think it's kind of political in a little ways. Listen, the Clemson brass is not going to fire Dabo Swinney. That's not going to happen, despite what some Clemson fans and the message board Clemson fans are probably screaming for him to get fired right now. Realistically, we all know, the rational fans know that that's not going to happen. He will not be fired, and it's going to take I think multiple bad losing seasons for him to be fired. He's not going anywhere. And unfortunately, it's kind of like Bill Belichick with the Patriots right now. There's situations of this has happened. It's you can't fire him. You can't. You just can't do that. Oklahoma State with Mike Gundy. If things went south for Oklahoma State, they'd be stuck. You can't fire Mike Gundy. Clemson
Theirs is
can't
more
fire...
contractual, but yeah.
Well, still, it's still the same. It's still sort of the same idea here. I think it would take a lot for Dabo to be fired, and I think if you're Clemson, the best case scenario for you is that you just sort of treat this year as sort of a wash, and you hope that because Garrett Riley's stock has plummeted a little bit this year, that he doesn't go anywhere, and that you're able to retain Garrett Riley for next year. And of course, you have Cade Klubnik coming back. You have another year of development with Cade Klubnik, retention at OC, and next year is sort of like that switch that flips.
You know, honestly, I don't think Klubnik's that good. I think Clemson should be looking in the portal for a quarterback to at least push Klubnik.
Well, we know that's not happening. So.
I know it's not happening, but man, if Clemson wants to take that next step, that would be the move right there. You need to bring some competition to the room.
Yeah, you got to hope that the next step is that switch is flipped with Cade Klubnik, but we'll see. But totally agree with everything about the transfer portal. It's adapt or die, and right now Clemson's dying.